In honor of me not enjoying the way FNAF franchise is going thanks to security breach, let me tell you a story about how I rewrit the FNAF timeline because I wasn't happy with the current lore at the time. Back to a time when I accidentally predicted a lot of future events in the franchise, specifically FNAF's sister location, aka FNAF 5. It was a time shortly after the release of FNAF 4, a time before the first FNAF novels would be released and their eventual plot twist that would add to my realization, a time shortly after MatPat released his final video on FNAF 4. It was my last year of middle school, and I was completely heartbroken about the fact that my favorite franchise turned out to be nothing more than the dreams of an imaginative child. Or at least that's what the evidence had led us to believe, thanks to good old Scotty Boy not knowing how to end the franchise. So I decided to create my own timeline, a timeline in which the events truly did happen, a timeline that started under the knowledge that I wouldn't have to worry about anything being contradicted in future games, since it didn't seem like another one was coming. The game, or the story, takes place after FNAF 3 when it burns down. And afterwards, instead of the company going bankrupt again, it would soon be quickly bought by two individuals. At the time, I didn't bother naming both of them. I just knew one of them was going to be the father of two future characters, and the other the mother of another character, but at least I named her Mary, or something like that. But that's not important. The main star of the show was my first ever FNAF OC, or FNAF animatronic OC, and her name was Melody. At that time, there was no existence of a really humanoid-shaped robot except for Balloon Boy, and I had the brilliant idea of trying desperately to make one that wasn't creepy. At least that's what my thought process was, until I realized, yeah, no, it's really hard to make a human-looking robot that's cheap with the whole mouth thingy without it looking disturbing. And so I came up with a brilliant yet simple solution to how I could make her look creepy but also cute at the same time. And that all leads me into the secret speaker system. I decided to make a system in which this robot had a special endoskeleton who could produce frequencies that, to the right person, would cause them to have minor hallucination, which would cause them to imagine the animatronic being more human than it actually was. At different levels, there were different levels of the illusion, as you can see by the sketch going on in the background. At level 0, when she had none of it on, and mostly when this happens, it was the middle of the day, because for a very specific reason. I had learned recently that the reason why you shouldn't go in the woods behind my school at night is because they put up special speakers that would produce a sound that only children could hear, and it would be horrible to anyone under the age of 25. And so with that in mind, I thought, if you could produce a sound that only someone can hear, why not make a vision that only some could see? So even at a little bit of this noise level, children would begin to have migraines. Young babies and infants would scream their hearts out, and their eyes would fill with pain. But not enough for it to be concerning or noticeable, just enough. So unfortunately, during the day, she basically was forced to keep her sound system completely off, leaving her vulnerable to the cruelty of a bunch of middle school kids who were forced to go there because of their little sibling. And so she was constantly mocked and belittled by said middle schoolers. But during the nighttime, when the worry of young children was out of the way, and the only person she had to worry about was the night guard, she could finally express herself in a more healthy way, leading to the most common design choice of her being level 25, where she looks a lot less like her mouth component becomes more like a human mouth, and her eyes don't look so empty and eye sockets from hell, because she was a robot, right? And that was her shtick. She had the sound system. At 50%, she still looked like a robot, but it was more like a doll, and it was almost close enough that if you weren't paying attention, you might actually believe she was human. And at 100%, she looked like a 14-year-old girl, perfect in her complexion and everything. Indescribably non-different from any child. The only problem being with each level of intensity, the more horrible the sound became, and the more damaging it became to those who hear it. The younger you were, the worse it got as the levels gone higher. And that was my concept. I accidentally predicted the illusion disc. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. And yeah, I know. I wouldn't believe me either. That's why I gave up on this AU. That's why I gave up on this OC. Because it seems so unbelievable. Especially now. But that wasn't the reason why I gave up on this character, was the illusion disc. No. I gave up on this character because look at her. What animatronic does she look like? I'll give you one big fat hint. Baby. Circus fucking Baby. I distinctly remember that day very carefully. Let me tell you, because the picture's not in color yet. So let me tell you what color scheme Melody's got going on and why I designed her the way she did. Melody is based off of the concept that when making their new franchise, these two people, the owners from the beginning when starting their new franchise, decided that they wanted to make a normal show stage, which had Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy, Pirates Cove, and something known as the Golden Time or Old Time stage, or as I eventually named it, and I'm pretty sure this is the name I chose because a lot of this has been lost to time because I kind of got upset at my own art because I didn't think it was worth keeping anymore because I was upset. I think it was called the Old Tune stage. Now her full animatronic name is Melody Tunes, and her whole concept is that the company decided that there needed to be more women in the animatronics, and found out since Golden Freddy, aka Fredbear, and Bonnie were a thing, and they wanted to make an homage. You know what an homage is, right? An homage to the original Fredbear location by making an old tune stage. And since Chica's already yellow and you can't make an older version of her and that didn't exist, to make an homage to the fact that there used to be human performers that used to perform with Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, they made a animatronic that looked like a girl. I, myself, actually based her off of Mahasino Miku. Of course, I wasn't going to use the color palette of Mahasino Miku. That was cheating. So I chose what was relatively an opposite color than blue, yellow, for her hair. And for her eyes, I chose blue for Freddy's eye and green for her unique eye color. That's right. A blue eye and a green eye. If there's anything about Circus Baby that people know about in this franchise, it's this. The eye color determines who was in control of her body. And that is most iconic thing about Circus Baby. And I had accidentally created a character way before people figured this out in the lore about the whole thing. Now, back in my day, we used to call Elizabeth a ginger, but nowadays people have agreed it's more of like a blondish orange. So it makes it even worse. So I have an animatronic that was designed to have blonde hair and pigtails that has green eyes. That is basically fusing Elizabeth Afton and Baby. And I can't do anything about it because I made the character before that game came out. And I have no evidence because back then I didn't sign dates on my goddamn art. And now I have to live with this knowledge for the rest of my life. On one hand, I'm incredibly flattered that me and Scott were on the same brain path. And on the other hand, I have a character which I was scared for years to put out. But now I feel a lot more comfortable talking about it, which is why I'm telling everyone in this video. And another thing I'd just like to mention is it's even worse when you know the full extent of the backstory of Melody, because although they are very different characters, her and Circus Baby have a lot in common, and it's scary.